On today's podcast, this is an exciting one. We talk a lot about strategy and how to engage and approach people with ultra high net worth. We don't talk a lot about building the support, the team that's needed. It's not someone who's doing this by themselves, but obviously, the more money you're trying to raise, the larger the organization. I'm thrilled today to have Jim with me, Jim Batten from the Batten Group. Jim is an impressive individual. He's been able to raise, working for other nonprofits, and we might talk a bit about that, but $20 million himself. And for the organizations in which he's supported, they've raised collectively over $2 billion nationally and internationally. So, Jim, I'm honored you're on the small little podcast of ours. Jim, I know you from hiring you for building teams, and you've hired some excellent people, and the Batten Group's a phenomenal organization. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your background and your experience fundraising and how you got into the realm of philanthropy.
Thanks, Andy. Great to see you. Yeah, it's interesting. Philanthropy and fundraising has changed so much over the years. When I started my career back in the March of Dimes, they were really driven around events, driven around reaching out to your board, reaching out to volunteers. But more recently, nonprofits have really realized that in order to move passionate mission and accomplish significant objectives, they need to really have top tier talent. As a child, I was raised in an environment where philanthropy was very important. My dad always believed in giving 10% of everything he raised to people who were needy.
Mm.
And that DNA kind of was embedded in me from a very young age. So when I started with the March of Dimes, I was delighted to be with that organization. They were fighting birth defects.
Mm.
And then I went to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. My mom had type 1 diabetes, very passionate about that organization. And I was serving as a leader with two other organizations, the Arthritis Foundation and the Alzheimer's Association. And I had realized I was at the Alzheimer's Association that we were really struggling to find, not only at that organization, at every organization, really top tier development, major gift, transformational leaders. And what it really took was a certain individual who had a passion, who had a sense of urgency, who had an intellect, who had an understanding of how to cultivate and steward relationships and really share opportunities with individuals to raise big money. In transitioning out of my CEO role with the Alzheimer's Association, I went into the executive search business because I wanted to provide value proposition to nonprofits where we could really recruit the top 15% of the market. I didn't want people who were just mediocre. I wanted really fantastic people that could add tremendous value.
Mm-hmm.
And in 15 years and 650 searches, working for dozens and dozens of organizations, very successful in helping great organizations with missions fund amazing opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The expansive experience that you have as CEO and managing those executive positions, that some of those huge names, March of Dimes, Juvenile Diabetes Research, Arthritis Society, they all, like you say, have started with events. So what do you see are the huge differences between big organizations raising lots of events and getting more money from major gift fundraising? You see a big difference in the type of person you need?
Yeah, not only the type of person, but the strategy. Organizations are realizing the days of building your future around special events has really gone past us. So the cost of doing those events is very high.
Mm.
It's about relationships, about building trust, and about communicating. So more and more organizations across the country are coming to the Batten Group to look for those major gift officers, those principal officers, people who can really impact an organization in a significant way. Those people have the influence, they have the affluence. Once you get them on your team and they have the passion, not only can they give of their own philanthropy, but they can open up doors, people that they know within their sphere of influence can give. So,
Mm.
for example, finding a leadership gift, finding a transformational gift of $10 million and getting a philanthropist to say they'll match that $10 million, that's a game changer for organizations. They weren't thinking about that transformation gift. They weren't thinking about that match concept,
Mhm.
but today it's very popular. But you do need that individual. You need that conduit. You need two things. You need a strategy that's really targeted and focused on how to extrapolate those gifts. And then you need to have the
Yeah.
staff that can really create the move managements, get out into the public and make those asks and cultivate those relationships.
Yeah. I would think there's got to be a difference too between a CEO who gets it for fundraising and an organization that doesn't have a CEO that's not really understanding the different functions of development. So, how do you see the difference there when you have two different clients, one that's really engaged in development and one that is not? Surely you're taking a different approach to both of those. Look at those two organizations and try to get them to where they need to be in terms of getting to major gifts.
Yeah. If the C-suite of the organization is not development savvy and has not had that experience and really doesn't understand what's involved with development, I would emphasize the need for a high-level chief philanthropy officer, chief growth strategy, people that know major gifts, and just allow them to really empower them and trust them with the knowledge to build the organization.
Mhm.
On the other side of the equation, if you have a CEO or a C-suite that really is knowledgeable in development, they can really add so much talent to the people that they bring in to move the development forward because they really understand the sense of urgency. So there's always this question in philanthropy. Is it no mission, no money, or no money, no mission? People have fought that for years. The mission will drive the
Right.
money will drive the mission. The truth is it's really hand in hand. You need the mission and the money. But
Yeah.
when you do have leadership that isn't development centric or development savvy, you really have to coach them on the need to surround themselves with really high performing development directors and major gift offers.
Yeah. And I would think for some organizations, and I've worked for some large organizations in the US and Europe, and there's always a sense that they're too late to start this kind of initiative because, like you're saying, there's a lot of big organizations that are getting the money from smaller events. In reality, building it within a large organization sometimes makes sense as well. Are there organizations you worked at where you've seen that kind of transformational change when they did start going into major gifts and from major gifts even into transformational gifts?
One client in particular, we had done their chief executive officer and chief development officer search. They had come to us to say, hey, we see that we have a lot of potential out there. People are very aware of our mission, very aware of our work. They've added almost 10 major gift officers over the last year or
Yeah.
two all over the country, regional gift officers. And their revenues have gone up about 40% in the last 2 years. They have seen a tremendous amount of increase in revenues. They're still doing their events. Their events are good. But the other thing about those major gifts and those transformational gifts, Andy, and this because you've been in the business and you've been responsible for securing transformational gifts on your own,
Mhm.
is that many times those individuals over time will become plan givers and plan donors.
Mm.
So the $5 million that they're giving you today really becomes 20 million or 30 million down the road when they leave a legacy gift. So there's so much value in transformational gifts and major giving other than that one just gift.
Mm.
But if organizations would realize that the cost effectiveness of building a strong major gift component is really smart
Yeah.
because it doesn't take 40 or 50 cents to raise a dollar. It takes 5 or 6 or 7 cents.
Yeah.
But you've got to align with an expert like yourself or like Batten Group that really knows how to put the process in place, hire the right team, execute on the plan. It's really about execution. You can plan all day, but if
Mhm.
you don't have the right people in place that can execute, you're not going to meet your goal.
I completely agree, and we call it the donor pyramid because the pipeline it leads up the pyramid, but it's also the tip of the iceberg. That's the reality of it when you build that pyramid. And you've talked about that, and we've worked together in the past, and certainly looking for building those teams out, but looking for those principal gift officers, as we call them, those people that make those huge transformation asks, and really where the return on investment is a lot of the time. What do you see when you're hiring someone like that? What kind of attributes do you see that really stand out? Because everyone's passionate to a certain degree a bit on the cause, and everyone's really excited for the nonprofit. But there has to be some attributes that you see when you do these interviews from people that are just standout candidates for principal gifts, transformational gifts. Well,
I think they have a special DNA. They're very driven to impact organization. They know how to cultivate and steward relations. They're very good listeners. They're very good strategists.
Mm.
They're able to meet with somebody and really glean what that person is looking for, because not only is it about relationship, it's about give and take. So you have to be sophisticated enough and articulate enough to listen very well, to understand what that individual is looking for, and then to create something that really is meaningful. That's a give back they can own, that they can get excited about. So I
Yes.
think you have to have a high EQ. You have to know how to work at the highest levels. You have to be very communicative, very detail oriented. You've got to follow through. People today, especially those individuals that are able to give transformational gifts at the principal giving level, they want to be cultivated and stewarded. They want to be invested. They
Mhm.
want to know where their money's going. They want to know that they're making a difference. They want to know that they can trust you and depend on the organization to execute. So it's really high level intellect, high level EQ, good listening, good communications, fire in the belly to really understand what that donor is
Mm.
seeking out of that relationship. Because every donor has a different need. Every donor has a
Yeah.
different expectation. So there's not one cookie cutter,
Mhm.
but you've got to be that real relationship driven person.
So when you hire the person, you get them into the organization, what's the key thing for that person to set them up for success? What are the things that you're seeing that the organization really needs to do? Because hiring them is one thing, but keeping them, especially in a sector where there's always turnover that's high, what do you guys do to make sure that organization and that individual set up for success?
I think they've got to plan who they're going to be cultivating and stewarding. They've got to look at their database. They've got to look at the prospects that they have.
Hmm.
But they also have to take a holistic look at philanthropy in general. Who are the people that have the ability and the willingness to give? So people don't just give because they're affected by a disease or they're affected by an organization. They give because there's a need and a
Hmm.
sense of urgency. 86% of people say they don't give because they were never asked. But once you hire that principal gift officer, you have to empower them with the information that they need to be able to go out into the market and to bring in those fish, bring in those multi-million dollar donors.
Yeah. And what about the relationship with the board and with the CEO? Is there uh, what what role does this person play when they're having to keep the plate spinning or work with those different stakeholders, if you like, when going out and asking for a gift?
Yeah, so the board really, the best boards and the best philanthropic organization boards that know how to give and know how to network. Unfortunately, not every board, but I think the philanthropy officer has to create a culture and an environment where giving is expected, not only at the CEO level by the CEO themselves, but by the board of directors,
Hmm.
and have to be able to network and ask for introductions, ask for people in their sphere of influence who they can introduce them to. But the board plays a big role in helping to drive philanthropy because those individuals should be well connected and should be able to really work with that principal gift officer to open up those doors.
Mm. Now, it makes sense because it also talks about the peer-to-peer side of things. It's always good to be friendly with major gifts, people giving major gifts. I always say a fundraiser is an expensive way of making a friend. Your
That's
job's to
right.
your job's to to raise money, and wealthy people typically become wealthy by not by knowing how to preserve money and make money.
But when they've come to a point where they've made their money, they really are very interested in giving their money to organizations that are worthy and credible.
Yeah.
But having that principal gift officer make that appeal to them in a compelling way is really important.
Yeah, and I think them not being alone, but being concise usually means there's a DNA or in a fabric that the concise message is the same across the board. That's what makes it concise, that everyone's saying the same thing. So
Absolutely.
you've been, even before your organization was founded some 15 years ago, doing this on the ground as a CEO and as an exec director. So you've seen probably some change over that time period in the sector. What have you seen from your days as CEO, hiring people and in the Batten group as well? Has it shifted some? Has the request changed in terms of what the hiring organization should look for in that time period?
Yeah, I think definitely the landscape has changed over the years, and especially since COVID, organizations had to pivot and professionals have had to pivot. So they're looking for a culture that's really meaningful to them. They're looking for an organization that brings sophistication and professionalism. Boards and leadership teams are really stretching philanthropy officers to reach new heights. We'll rejoice when we got a $500,000 gift or $1 million gift, and it's still a good number. Most people can't give it.
Mhm.
But when they're sitting around the table and they're interviewing them, they'll say, tell me about the last $10 million gift that you secure.
Mm.
It takes a special individual to be able to have a portfolio of securing $5 and $10 million gifts.
Mhm.
But that's what organizations need and are looking for today.
Yeah.
Those transformational leadership gifts that will help them build for the future. And most of the time, those gifts are really unrestricted gifts.
Mhm.
While they're giving to the mission and to the organization, that organization is able to use that gift in a variety of ways.
And from the research I was looking at, when you think there's over 3,500 new billionaires in the next 5 years expected, and 600,000 people have more than 30 million in net assets, and they gave 25% more the last 5 years than the prior 5 years. Philanthropy is certainly not dead. It's, if anything, the question is, I think, are organizations ready and prepared for this huge shift, and this huge shift as well in generational wealth that's being transferred, as you'll see the baby boom and silent generations start to transfer that wealth over. I think it's a case, and I know whenever we made any change when I was the CEO of an organization for major gifts, and we did a lot of the transformative gifts, I would always get on the phone to Jim, and you knew the people who were looking at the time, the right kind of caliber, and also you knew who the CEO was and who would work with that kind of person. I think that's key, because a lot of recruitment agencies will go through their proprietary stuff,
Right,
whatever they're
right.
saying, and their process. But the reality is, you want the person who's the best person fit for the role, and that takes experience, and that's why every time it's development, we come to you, Jim, and you obviously a family business that's grown into much more. But your advice was always really powerful when we were trying to move the needle. So I want to thank you for that. But also, what advice would you give? Because you're certainly instrumental in getting people from one discipline of development into another. And so if there's a lot of people who are doing mid-level fundraising, or trying to get $1,000 gifts here, there, or the events, what advice would you give them if they were looking to get into more major giving and transformational gifts? Because, as you say, it takes that special kind of someone, and they may have that in a different discipline right now.
I would say you have to be very bold in your approach to philanthropy. Many organizations don't do a good job, definitely don't hire the right major gift officer, but they also don't have a boldness about them to really stretch for new heights. Almost every organization that we work with is capable and qualified of securing that $5 or $10 million gift. But you have to have the boldness, you have to have the confidence, and you have to have the strategy to be able to engage those individuals.
Mhm.
I think really stepping up, getting away from the special events, getting away from the $5,000 corporate sponsor to do a walk and to realize, hey, that CEO of that corporation was really involved and had been sponsoring us for 5 years.
Mhm.
That's somebody we need to really target and cultivate and talk about for a bigger gift, and learn what their sphere of influence is and who is there on their board of directors and who are their big depositors at the bank, for example. But having that boldness, having that strategy, breaking out of the box, because it's just your transformational gifts really take a lick at, they need to be bold, they need to be big, need to be audacious. What's your big audacious goal?
Mhm.
And the time is now. The money is there. The philanthropy is there. This is there for the taking. What they need is the implementation of the program and the talent. They need the conviction to really move forward with the process, right? Not hesitate, not be apprehensive, not what, if the expertise is there, if the strategy is there, if the recruitment of the team can be there, you
Mhm.
have to be successful.
It makes sense. And getting someone strategic, getting someone who knows how to build those relationships, key. And I think there's a big misconception that it's hard to ask for money, but I think it's an injustice that happens when you're paid to do a position that isn't taking those people with wealth and matching them to the mission in which they care about so much. And that's really the role. We're always looking for ultra high net worth individuals in large organizations, but also organizations that are looking to grow to become larger. And Jim, you and your team do that really well.
Those ultra high net individuals, they're out there. It's about quality and not necessarily quantity. When you're doing fundraising, you want a lot of people to participate.
Yeah.
But at the principal gift level, at the transformational gift level, it's about the quality of
Yeah.
the individual, not the quantity.
Yes.
And those individuals, you get 1 or 2 or 3 sparks. It's really amazing to see when you make the right ask and you get the right individual to make a leadership gift, how other people many times follow.
Mm.
So success breeds success. Was having that breakthrough moment, that aha moment that we can do this.
Yes.
And it's an exciting time because more and more organizations are really finding that this is the time when they need these transformational gifts, when they need to hire these individuals, when they need to be bold, when they're stepping away from the special events, when they're stepping away from the small sponsorships and realizing that they have to maximize their relation and their potential.
Yeah. That's fair. And they may not even realize they're good at it. That's the other thing. And that's where you guys come in, that diamond in the rough, if you like. I know when I was first as CEO of an organization and I was going to go and see this billionaire in San Francisco and you're winging it a little bit, but you're asking him questions. I went to see him, had dinner, and I said, we would really like your support. And he said, I haven't got any money. I was like, right. And then when I go back 5 minutes later, I'd say, this is a really good fundraising goal that we have. And he goes, not interested. So by the third time, we were looking to raise about $90 million. And then he told me about 10 other people I should go and see. So as we're kind of walking out after dinner with him, I said, like, can I come and see you in April and we can talk about this? And he goes, have I got any choice?
Well, no means that the timing's not right, but let's talk again later.
The timing's not right, but let's speed that time up too. The cause is always urgent to fight the issue that you're fighting.
I think the timing is really right for organizations to get serious, be meaningful in the way that they raise principal gifts and individual major gifts.
Yeah.
And they need the structure and they need the talent. The money is there. The individuals are there. They're waiting to be stewarded and cultivated. They'll open up doors for us. It's a bold, audacious type of fundraising, but it's fundraising. Many of the organizations are coming to me and saying, Jim, I'm still not where I was pre-COVID. Our organization hasn't gotten to that point. What will make the difference?
Yeah.
This is what will make the difference.
Absolutely.
These principal gift officers, these transformational gifts, having the boldness, having the strategy to really implement a program that will create millions and millions of dollars, not only for today, but for the future.
Absolutely. If organizations are coming to you and saying that they're not where they were before COVID and the data is showing that the affluent are more affluent and the giving is more generous, then there's a disconnect there. And so absolutely. A change
What
is always needed.
One organization very recently, Andy said, I'm down 30 to 40%
Mm,
in my special events revenue, but I'm up 10 to 15% in my major gifts revenue.
mm.
So what's the answer? The answer is let's do more major gifts. Let's make those transformational gifts happen. Let's not spend all of those dollars putting on those special events, the golf tournaments, the galas. They'll always be there. There's always a need for those community events and cultivation.
Yeah,
But the strategy and the energy needs to be towards bigger major gift, the
absolutely.
transformational gift
Yeah.
that can make it in an instant. A $15 million organization, national health organization that gets a $10 million gift,
Mm.
that's a game changer.
And knowing where to look for them too. You can do your data overlay, and that's important for who's giving. I know one event when we're looking at the data, because they said, don't look at the tribute gifts and the people that give to people on behalf of a walk. But it didn't take long to look into that and find out if they're giving on a repeated basis to the same individual over years, then they probably have some affection or affiliation to that person and to your cause too. But it just takes some desk research and digging, and to your point, the strategy side to go where others won't always go because it looks too scary in terms of the database. But when we looked at it, we found Bill Gates in there pretty fast at a certain very small amount compared to how many zeros he's committed and will give to organizations. But that's just one example of so many. And as you say, like March of Dimes and all those organizations that do the walks and the events, there's plenty there too. Just about finding those major gifts.
Those $25 givers that have been given for years and years, the
Mhm.
principal gift officer knows that there's something underlying there and they need to investigate and make that call. It's amazing how many times those people become tremendous donors.
And it's never too late for organizations, especially if you're large and worked for one in the UK that had 400,000 donors all giving small amounts. And it's just a case of take that flat line and make it a donor pyramid and really build it and get the expertise in there that's needed and the team. Jim, thanks so much for joining. We appreciate everything of what you'll do for organizations to bring about huge amounts of change in the sector.
Good to be part of it.